Meredith Schweitzer of the School of Advanced Research.
School for Advanced Research.
Exactly. You know, I don't really need these things.
Get them out.
Okay. This is Isabel Rusch, who is the co-host of the show. We'd like to announce this is a very big moment. This is our third show in a row. And we're so delighted to have Meredith here.
Yeah, you look delighted.
Oh, so you have a giant collection of Native American works and pottery.
We have about 12,000 works of Native American art, and it goes all the way from the 6th century up to contemporary art because we run an artist residency program as well.
And it's all very valuable.
I mean, I think we don't prescribe like dollar amounts.
Have you ever like accidentally
bumped something?
Because I saw the video. It was a virtual video. I actually been there, but virtual video of walking through there.
We need to get you to actually go.
Yes, but the video was, I was in the lobby a lot in the video. Then the video went upstairs and it had everything lined up, like all these cups.
Well, that's the cool thing is that it's open shelf storage, which is like totally different than if you go to like a traditional museum and you do a behind the scenes tour with a traditional museum. You see things in boxes and whatever, but the Indian Arts Research Center, everything's on open shelf storage, so you see everything and you like really get the sense of history. It's so cool.
How do you preserve it in open shelf? Like, is it a different preservation? Because if it's in like a box, right, it's a controlled environment. Mm-hmm. So if it's just open shelf, like how do you keep it from not deteriorating?
Well, you have climate control within the spaces, so there's not a lot of like things that you might get in your house, like as much dust and stuff like that. But there, you do have to go through and do dusting and do maintenance and collections.
God, this is so boring.
Okay,
I got an idea.
Yeah, no, he asked the questions and he's
And
like,
anyway,
God, that's a terrible question.
That question. Okay,
it's your question.
Okay, so people donate all this, right?
Sort of. It started by a collection in 1922. So there was like a base collection, and it's been built upon since then.
Who donates it?
Wait a minute. What percent of it's stolen?
That's controversial. I wouldn't say that any of it is necessarily stolen.
Appropriated.
And in fact,
how about appropriated?
I think that one of the things that's really unique about what we do as an organization is something called collections reviews, where we literally go through every object in our collection and we have tribal source community members come in and tell us about those pieces. And pieces where they say are culturally sensitive or have reasons why they can't be displayed, we respect that and we house them completely separately. If there are pieces that need to be returned to communities, we do that. So we're sort of like leading the field in terms of how you work with source communities.
Okay, I got this little. I have a story. Okay.
Did you fall asleep with the
answer?
answer?
I'm okay. It was a great answer. So I went to
goodness.
this Native American person I know said, "Hey, we want to use your home." One of the homes I had a long time ago, and we're gonna have an all tribes meeting there. And they said, "We'd like you not to be here at the meeting." And I said, "Okay." So I came back a little early, and I heard about this. One is.
I'm not sure you're supposed to be repeating this. What are you doing?
Richard, stop.
Well, I did hear this.
It doesn't matter.
But
you
I
were
can
supposed
say.
to be there. You literally
I
said,
came back.
I was asked to leave. They didn't want me to know any of this, so now I'm going to share it on the
internet.
Exactly.
Whoa,
Yeah.
with your
Yeah.
F-bombs.
Yeah. Oh my God. This is really high level stuff.
Whoa.
So here's the deal. The two things I did hear was the appropriation of bones of Native American bones that were in the Smithsonian to get those bones returned to be properly buried.
Sure.
That's one. And the other one was when ranchers would buy land, they had a certain proclivity to cut through the barbed wire and go to Native American burial sites, take the items and sell them at local markets.
How can you buy that land anyway?
Well, this is rancher land.
I guess a lot of places are on private property,
Right.
but a lot of those issues have been
Resolved?
addressed, but not necessarily resolved, but starting to be addressed through like NAGPRA and the Graves Repatriation Act. And there are, in fact, your friend, what's his name?
I don't have that many friends.
I know, so that's why it should be pretty easy for.
But
But
anyway,
anyway, but the point is that the NAGPRA really helped people recognize that there are pieces, especially like remains and culturally sensitive pieces and things that are religious in nature that should go back to communities, and so that's a big thing.
So wait, how did those pieces end up on privately owned land, right? Like, shouldn't that be?
That's such a good question. Yes. I don't have an answer for that. I think a lot of it is so in the 1860s. Oh, Richard told me I only have 10 seconds to answer each question, so I'll try to do this. But in the 1860s, Lincoln set up the Native American 19 pueblos in New Mexico, and those were very like strict blocks of spaces. And before that, those blocks of spaces didn't exist. So there are pieces all over the Southwest, in fact, all over the country that are on private property, but technically have some affiliation with Native American communities. And
I'd like to
that's
change
just
this conversation.
Yeah. Oh, did I go over 10 seconds?
Yes, a little bit. You went.
You went over
14.
10 seconds.
So I was knocked out by the counterculture exhibit, and because I was part of it, because I lived in it, and the exhibits of the hog ranch and the hog farm, and the people that were looking for an alternative lifestyle, the people that were dropped out but dropped into something else. Who said that? Timothy Leary or one of those guys. And then and where you could listen to to the reality and the conversation and the discussion and the anti-movement in the country against the Vietnam War.
Yeah. What was so cool, I think, about that exhibit is both Jack Leffler and I, my co-curator and I, we're both sort of more like oral historians and think about things in terms of story and in terms of voice. And what I loved is we had these like audio alcoves that you could go in and you could listen to. He had recordings with Yogi Bhajan's wife, and he had recordings with some of the more contemporary Sikh community, like reflecting on things. But we also had people like David Grant Noble, who's this wonderful archaeologist and was a Vietnam War activist. And he has a whole thing about being in protests and being sort of involved in the anti-war movement from a veteran's perspective. It was really, I think that was what was interesting, is you were able to like listen to some of the history, which we don't always do in history exhibits. Your ears get to your brain, man.
That's right, man.
Yeah.
Science.
So you
but you were part of the movement.
Well, I had long hair and I had a beard because you needed all that to get girlfriends, so to speak, as it were.
It's always about women.
So I wasn't part of the movement. I was just in it to get girls.
Well, I wouldn't say it exactly like that.
Yeah, but
I got hit by truncheons. I marched in Seattle
then you
against the war.
were part of the movement.
I was part of the movement.
Weren't you, Richard?
63 to 69, I was in the Army Reserves. I was in medical corps. I was trained at Fort Sam Houston. I was trained in Fort Ord. I went to Fort Sam Houston. I was trained as a medic. So, but fortunately, I wasn't sent overseas to the Vietnam War. Yogi Bhajan did was he brought this sense of awareness.
Yeah.
One of the senses of awareness was community. So the Sangat, the community, the teachings, and the teacher. Or you could say the teacher, the teachings, and the Sangat, the community. One aspect of it was that a lot of young people wanted to get high, right? So if you want to get high, if you really want to get high, practice Kundalini Yoga.
Because you don't need drugs.
You don't need drugs.
You know what's funny is, Lama Foundation in Taos that still exists, they celebrated their 50th anniversary when we had the exhibit open, actually. And they are so amazing. The founders, so they had this whole community up there in Taos at Lama Foundation when they first started, and they were building, and it's really amazing, like the spaces up there. You can see the whole Taos Valley. It's like so beautiful. And they started with like, okay, we're just going to have a few rules. You have to work together, blah, blah, whatever.
Right.
And one of them was no drugs.
Right.
No alcohol, no drugs.
Right.
They went down to 3 people.
Oh.
Yeah. So, it was sort of like you got to build it back up with like people who are actually into it.
What was your feeling about that generation or my generation?
What was the feeling?
Were your parents somewhat in that
I don't
world?
know. I feel like my parents, I think they were both born in the 60s, but they were like children, you know what I mean? So they weren't like, woo, counterculture. They're the generation afterwards. They definitely, they lived in Santa Fe for 20 years. Like, they're definitely Santa Fe people, and I feel like everyone who lives in Santa Fe is like a little...
Well, I think like the awareness that was brought about, the like environmental and cultural kind of awareness that was brought about in the trajectory of the counterculture. So like eating organic food, like thinking about your place on the earth, understanding Native American communities in a more real way that's not just like a hat nod
Well,
to
women's
cultures.
empowerment too.
Women's empowerment.
I
think that like mentality has stayed very true in Santa Fe. So even if you grew up in Santa Fe after counterculture, you're still sort of exposed to it in some ways.
I was gonna
You don't
say-
think so?
Well, how did that? I do think so. And how? What do you think that the counterculture did to evolve not only our age group but yours?
Well, I mean, I think two things. One, I agree with you on counterculture. I think that's true. It's kind of been preserved in Santa Fe, so I might be biased because I was raised
grew up
here,
here.
so I might more feel like it's relevancy. But I also feel like, I don't know, I feel like the hippie generation and the current generation, like the newest two generations, like they're kind of not parallel, like they're not obviously the same people, but I feel like the same sentiments that are were echoed like in hippies is the same stuff that's being echoed now. Like there's a lot of people, especially who are younger, because we're gonna die if we don't fix it, who like really, really care about the environment and really care about understanding culture and all of the points that you were making. So I feel like they're kind of like mirroring each other.
I like to think of it as like a new wave.
thank
you. Yeah, like
it's
a
a
new
new
wave.
tide, like a group coming up who has some kind of awareness that I think is important.
Yeah, I think that's why a lot of kids in my generations are like super into hippies, because you can kind of see like the relevancy in what they were saying. And like you said, it's like a new tide, you know? It's all kind of spanning back to like, oh, but look, they got it back then. They had a good idea. Let's continue it.
Meredith,
Yes.
it's been a joy to have
This
you on
was
Richard's
fun.
Point
Thank
of View.
you so much for having
and
me.
you
Thanks.
are fabulous always. My co-host.
So how the
Wait, I want to make this is one moment. I'd like to say, if you want to learn a lot about the Native American culture, listen to Robbie Robertson, Message to Red Boy from the Underworld, produced by Jim Wilson. And the backup singers are Walea, which are the Coolidge sisters. That's where I learned a lot.